That's my first one. All right, I'm gonna do a first thing real quick.
Okay. Classroom attributes for high needs classroom, tier one methods, are my capstone. This was the survey results. There was a tie between, I thought there was a tie, yeah, there was a tie. Classroom attributes for high needs classroom and different instruction for students with IEPs and 504 plans. I chose to do the classroom management side of it because I feel more adept to teach that. With modification, I feel like that's a longer professional development than 45 minutes. So we're going with this one. I'm not gonna play this video, but this is from Every Kid's Day champion, Rita Pearson. You've probably seen it. It's an 8-minute video. Background, my experience, I've been teaching ELA for 8 years, 5 years in middle school, 3 in high school, at Town of Barstow, Atlanta, Moreno Valley, Lake Elsinore. All schools are Title I. In every single case, in every single one of my classrooms, I was experiencing kids who had high traumatic situations, and I'll talk about some of them today. And I mean the highest. Now, to touch on some of those students that I got to work with. 3 objectives: you're gonna realize what optimal classroom management looks like, understand the importance of relationship building with students, and realize 3 key strategies for effective classroom management. What defines a high needs classroom? Schools with a high percentage of ELD students, usually about 40% is what we're looking for. We have that here. I would say, in fact, over half our students are ELD. Some have just exited the program. Schools with several IEPs and 504 plans. For myself, I hate to admit this, but all of our classes do have a lot of IEPs and 504 plans. And 504 plans tend to get noticed a little bit more. They're less, I think, contractually binding than an IEP. Although they act a lot like it. Trauma-affected students, which we have here, and in low academic proficiency. Most of our students are actually below 3rd grade level. And this is something that the ELA department we've been really focused on lately in our PLCs, and we are working on professional development currently. There's a lot of side jobs or side training we've been doing that's not really been talked about yet, but we are working on. We're going back to teaching phonics. We're going to go back to elementary school teaching for the middle school level to some extent. Classroom management refers to strategies, techniques teachers use to maintain a productive, respectful, and focused learning environment. It includes establishing routines, research-based strategy for high needs classrooms. You need to establish routines and have clear high expectations, not just for the behavior itself, but also academically. That's a combination that I think tends to get ignored. Relationship building, which is by far the most important piece of this. And then using trauma-informed practice is something I'm still working on. I know for a lot of our students on campus I interact with, I tend to not realize you may have been through something. And then I'm coming in aggressively. And I'm triggering them. And I'm learning to come in more calm. Where I grew up, we get yelled at as kids. That's the world I grew up in. It wasn't necessarily a bad thing. We also, a lot of my fellow students growing up were not from traumatic experiences. And it's more of a farming community and just a different culture. And times have changed in the last 3 years. What trauma-informed practices do I start with? I do greet my students every day at the door. I think that's a key part of it. Letting them, I think what that does, this is my opinion, I think it establishes I'm the teacher, I'm here, welcome to my classroom, come in please. Versus if they come in my opinion, they have some level of ownership immediately because they just walk on it, they didn't knock like you would your own home, right? So inviting them in establishes this is our classroom, but this is my room. Control and eliminate the distractions. Cell phone should always be away, that's obvious. Anything else that may be distracting them. I had a teacher come in yesterday, and all my students had their books and they were engaged. I guarantee their question was, why did I have pencils? Why did I have paper? I actually find that to be a distraction when we're reading. I want them to read, establish that they read it, and go back through it later with their paperwork and reread the chapter. So this is more distractions. Warm up the code calling. I have a student on 504 plan right now. I have to give her questions ahead of time. Some students just need that. This all affects your overall classroom management and how students are gonna interact with you while you're asking them questions. And then I've learned this one recently, just don't sweat the small stuff. A student stands up with a sharper pencil, I choose my battles, that doesn't bother me. Some people it does, I respect that. Some folks don't bother some people. You gotta pick and choose your battles, and that's a common saying, but it does really truly need to establish that part of it. Oop. Three things you can do: give them the look, tone of voice, and then repeat expectation and get positive reinforcement. This was a slide that I had to fix, especially the last part of it for the positive reinforcement part. I think we tend to forget the positive reinforcement. Put it in perspective, I did a Lasers coaching thing for football. We can no longer yell at our players. That was the big takeaway from that in Vegas when I went there for defensive line coaching. But they said, you want to do three things. Make sure, tell them what they're doing wrong, positive, they can do better next time, stuff like that. This is the benefits of increasing your classroom management, improving it. Student work will go up, assessment scores will go up. Ultimately, the last one I want to point to is you will be happy. Happy to find your job more fulfilling. I tend to enjoy my job more every year. That's how I feel anyways. And going that direction, I think it's just because my classroom management's been improved over the years. My job's becoming easier. I'm going to share a couple of these stories real quick. Evander these are all four former students of mine at different schools. Evander was a high schooler I had in my English class. And this goes back to, what's the context of this? This is the importance of relationship. And what was the main focus of my presentation was when you connect to your students, there's a lot of possibilities that can happen that you may not expect. For Evander, I had to bump his grade up from an F to a C minus so he could play basketball his sophomore year. His grades ended up going up, but it was that relationship that allowed me to make that happen. And then it was just a couple years later when I was at Atlanta, I went to a lunchroom, and I wasn't really sure what happened. I kind of forgot about him, and this fell out of the paper. That was usually on the lunch table. This was his senior year. It was the first league title, and he hit the game-winning shot. Which proved to me, showed to me like what relationships can do when they're positive. We're talking about human beings here, right? And then Curtis was another one. Mom didn't want him. She told us that in the meeting when he was there. How do I turn him over to foster care? How do I give him up? Didn't know his father. So Curtis to this day is probably the toughest student I've ever had. He sent me to the hospital twice. Chest pains, literally. He was just brutal. My third day there, he comes into the room and he says the N-word. And I said, Curtis, Curtis never here. He goes, oh really? He goes, class, on the count of 4, I want you to say that. He says the N-word, and it literally leads the class, and then they all say it. And from that point on, it was just a constant battle with him. Like I knew I was starting off in hell. Never mind the ground level, I was in hell. And by the end of the year, I turned him around, built a relationship with him, asked him, where are you going, man? Like, what are you gonna do? Because you got like 4 more years, you're out of high school, then what? Because I'm going to the military, I go, yeah. Can you read and write? Kinda. So I'll tell you what, we're supposed to do an essay, informative. You're gonna write me an essay, what are you gonna do in the Army? Because I want to be a tank driver. You're gonna write me an essay, informative, about what it means to be a tank driver in the military, in the Army. And he did it. And we sat down and we worked on it together. If I don't make that connection, that's not an option. I don't know what to happen, right? I'm gonna skip Kanye, but his story background, I won't go into too much detail, he was a tough one too. He was from Moreno Valley, his family got ran out to Atlanta. And on Thanksgiving Day, a rival gang decided to kick his door in on Thanksgiving. They walked in, some of his family members sitting on the couch, and they walked up to his brother, bam, 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 and then walked out. He finished the whole thing, he was clever. It's just a different world that some of our kids are growing up in that we don't even know. Someone had to tell me that. I didn't know that. And I'm over here butting heads with them. Janiah is one where I failed. She she had a full scholarship to Juilliard. I did not know this. And I felt her senior year during the pandemic, because she never did anything. And part of the problem was she didn't show up half the days either. I never had the opportunity to really make the relationship with her, build one with her. And had I been able to do that, she might be in New York. But apparently she was a gifted dancer, I did not know that. And I go back and forth with her, and I made the right decision. At some point, someone has to hold her accountable. Is that me? I don't know. But she did nothing, and we did not have a relationship, because we were always butting heads. And it wasn't even me being spiteful, it was just me doing what I thought was right. And I learned, like, build a relationship with these kids. It matters, it's important for them. We're gonna skip the activity, and this is our recap. Effective classroom management creates a structure needed for all students to thrive. Key strategies, relationship building, predictable routines, and trauma-informed responses. And then be proactive, consistent classroom practices. Thank you. I was able to record that. I think I got through it pretty quick. That was supposed to be about an hour, but, actually. Is that what we're at? I don't know when you started. Actually only took me 15 minutes.
Okay.
So I'm good with it. It would've been a lot longer had more people been here. But I just need to send them 10 minutes of this and I'm good.
Good to go.
I'm off the chain.